Have you ever felt like someone was blaming or criticizing you for something that just didn't make sense? Or you noticed that a friend's criticism seemed more about them than you? This might be because of psychological projection. In simple terms, projection is when people take their own feelings, thoughts, or issues and attribute them to someone else. In this video, we'll explore projection, what it is, why people do it, and how to recognize it in everyday life. Understanding projection can help you stay calm and centered, even when others try to drag you into their emotional turmoil. I'm Jo Banks. I've been a professional executive business coach for 15 years, and I'm sharing what I know. Understanding psychological projection. Human behavior is a mix of emotions, thoughts, and actions, all shaped by the complex functions of the mind. Among the many ways the mind protects itself under challenging situations, psychological projection stands out as particularly fascinating and pervasive. This mechanism, identified and explored extensively in the field of psychoanalysis, helps us understand how individuals cope with feelings and traits they find unacceptable or difficult to acknowledge within themselves. What is psychological projection? Psychological projection is a defense mechanism in which an individual unconsciously attributes their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or motives to another person. This process helps the individual externalize and distance themselves from aspects of their psyche that they find distressing or incompatible with their self image. Projection can manifest in various ways. For instance, a person who harbors feelings of hostility might accuse others of being hostile towards them. Someone uncomfortable with their own feelings of jealousy might insist that their partner is overly jealous. By projecting these unwanted qualities onto others, the individual avoids confronting them within themselves, thus preserving their ego and self concept. The origins of projection. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, first introduced the concept of psychological projection. Freud believed that defense mechanisms are unconscious strategies the ego uses to protect itself from anxiety and the conflict between the id, primitive desires, and the superego, moral standards. In Freud's view, projection is one of these mechanisms, helping individuals manage internal conflicts by attributing their undesirable traits to external sources. Why do people use projection? Number one, self-protection. At its core, projection serves a protective function by projecting their own negative traits onto others. Individuals shield themselves from the emotional discomfort associated with these traits, such as jealousy, envy, inadequacy, low self-esteem, shame, and unworthiness. This self-protection is essential for maintaining psychological equilibrium, especially when their self-concept, who they see themselves as, is threatened. Number two, ego preservation. The ego, or the conscious self, strives to maintain a positive self-image. When faced with thoughts or feelings that contradict this image, projection allows individuals to preserve their ego by denying these aspects within themselves and attributing them to others. For example, a person who sees themselves as generous might project their own selfish tendencies onto a friend, thereby maintaining their self-perception as a generous individual. Number three, avoidance of responsibility. Confronting and accepting personal flaws or negative emotions can be challenging and uncomfortable. Projection provides an escape route by enabling individuals to avoid taking responsibility for these aspects of themselves. By blaming or putting others down, they sidestep the need for self reflection and personal accountability. Number 4, fear of judgment. Social judgment and criticism can be powerful deterrents to acknowledging our flaws. Projection helps individuals avoid the fear of being judged by externalizing their undesirable traits. For instance, someone who fears being perceived as incompetent might project this insecurity onto their colleagues by criticizing their abilities instead. Number 5, coping with anxiety. Anxiety often arises from internal conflicts and unresolved emotions. Projection serves as a coping mechanism to manage this anxiety by displacing the source of the distress onto others. This displacement reduces the immediate anxiety associated with self awareness and introspection. Common examples of projection. Number 1, blame shifting. A common manifestation of projection is blame shifting. For instance, an individual who is frequently late might accuse others of being unreliable or disorganized. By projecting their own shortcomings onto others, they deflect attention away from their own behavior. Number 2, accusations of infidelity. In romantic relationships, an unfaithful person might project their guilt and suspicion onto their partner, accusing them of infidelity. This projection serves to alleviate their guilt and distracts from their own misconduct. Number 3, criticism of others. Individuals uncomfortable with their own flaws often become overly critical of others. For example, a person with low self esteem might constantly criticize others' appearances or abilities, projecting their own insecurities onto those around them. Number 4, perceived hostility. People with aggressive tendencies might perceive others as hostile or antagonistic towards them. This projection justifies their own aggressive behaviour as a defensive response to external hostility. Strategies to avoid absorbing others' issues. Number 1, develop self-awareness. The first step in preventing others' projections from affecting you is to cultivate self-awareness. Understanding your own strengths, weaknesses, and emotional triggers helps you recognize when someone is projecting onto you. Regular self-reflection, journaling, and mindfulness practices can enhance self-awareness. Number 2, and I mentioned this in so many videos, set boundaries. Establishing clear boundaries is crucial. Communicate assertively and clearly about what behaviours are acceptable and what are not. Boundaries protect your emotional space and ensure you're not taking on more than you can handle. Number 3, detach with love. Detachment doesn't mean that you stop caring about others. It means that you stop trying to control them. When someone projects onto you, acknowledge their feelings without internalizing them. Remind yourself that their projections are about them and not about you. Number 4, practice emotional grounding. Techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, and grounding exercises can help you stay centered. And I've talked about those in lots of my previous videos. I'll leave some links below. When you feel overwhelmed by someone's projection, take a moment to breathe deeply and ground yourself in the present moment. The physiological sigh is brilliant for that. Again, the link will be below. Number 5, respond, but don't react. When confronted with projection, strive to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Take a moment to assess the situation and choose a response that aligns with your values and goals. Taking a 4-second breather before you reply is a brilliant tool. This approach helps you maintain your composure and prevents escalation. Number 6, develop empathy. While it's important to protect yourself, developing empathy for the person projecting can also be beneficial. Understanding that they're dealing with their own unresolved issues and they're very likely to be in the subconscious can help you not take their behavior personally. Real life applications. Consider a workplace scenario where a colleague frequently criticizes your work despite your consistent performance. Recognizing this as projection requires self-awareness. Perhaps this colleague is insecure about their own abilities and projects their fear of inadequacy onto you. By setting boundaries, you can address the criticism professionally, making it clear that constructive feedback is welcome, but unwarranted negativity is not. And if you want to have a difficult conversation with someone and you're worried about that, I have a video on that topic. The link will be below. I take you step by step through a process. Practicing emotional grounding before these interactions helps you stay calm and focused. In personal relationships, projection can manifest as accusations or unwarranted blame. A partner might accuse you of being emotionally distant when in fact they are the ones struggling with intimacy issues. Here, detachment with love is key. Acknowledge their feelings without accepting the blame. Encourage open communication and seek to understand the root cause of their projection without letting it undermine your self-worth. I often experience projection, as do most content creators. People can be really quick to criticize ideas, content, methods, or even mistakes unfairly, even though they produce little or no content themselves. Typically, in this scenario, they're projecting their own issues around jealousy, envy, or even low self-esteem. After all, it's much easier to criticize others than to do what they're doing. One saying that I frequently use in these types of situations is, "You'll never be criticized by people doing more than you." The wrap up. Projection is a common psychological defense mechanism people use to protect themselves from uncomfortable truths. Understanding why people use projection can foster compassion and patience, but developing strategies to avoid absorbing others' issues is crucial. By cultivating self-awareness, setting boundaries, practicing emotional grounding, and maintaining focus on your purpose, you can navigate interactions with those who project onto you without being derailed. In doing so, you preserve your emotional well-being and stay true to your path, fostering healthier relationships and a more fulfilling life. What next? If you have any words of wisdom on this topic or any questions you'd like me to answer, please leave them in the comments section below. I absolutely love interacting with you all and truly value your feedback. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. Finally, as always, a huge thank you to everyone who stays until the very end, and thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the absolute world to me.